Hey guys, tonight we drift far from polished maps and Instagram Scotland into a sliver of the past no one bothered to frame. The kind of place that wasn't meant to be remembered. The kind you don't plan to find but end up in anyway. Ankle soaked, heart confused, and absolutely sure something behind you just moved. You're not in a storybook. There's no cobbled high street, no fiddles, no rowdy inn with suspiciously cheerful drunks. You're on the edge of medieval Scotland. The real edge. The kind where the trees look older than time and the hills seem to whisper your thoughts back to you, but not kindly. The air smells like heather and regret. Wet wool, old bones, and peat that's been burning since last winter. And probably the one before that. There's a path here, barely. More like a suggestion made in mud, winding between thistle and stone, leading you straight to a cottage that shouldn't be here. Half buried, half forgotten, entirely awake. The thatch roof droops like it's tired of pretending. The chimney exhales smoke in slow, suspicious spirals. And when you step near the door, the hinges don't creak. They breathe. Inside it's warm, sort of. Warm in the way a fever is warm. The air tastes of barley and ash. A pig snores somewhere you can't see. You can feel its dream pressing against the walls like steam. The fire crackles with a tone you don't recognize. Half lullaby, half warning. Your bed is a pile of straw shoved into the driest corner. On top, a scratchy wool blanket that smells faintly of mint and unspoken rules. You're not sure if it's meant to protect you or trap you. You sit by the hearth, sip from a dented tin cup filled with something hot. Tea maybe, maybe just boiled moss. Either way, it does the trick. On the mantel, bundles of herbs hang like upside-down prayers. Sage, rowan, something sweet and strange you don't have a name for. Historians still argue whether the Highlanders used them to flavor stew or banish spirits. Honestly, probably both. Flavor's subjective. Haunting isn't. The wind scratches at the shutters. Not urgently, just enough to remind you it hasn't left. A mouse peeks down from the rafters. Bold little thing. Doesn't flinch when you make eye contact. Might have been here longer than the walls. There's a bowl of oatcakes on the table. You chew one slowly. It tastes like memory and dirt. Not bad. Just honest. The roof groans. The kind of sound that wood makes when it remembers something it wishes it hadn't. And outside, darkness. Not gradual, not romantic, just gone. One minute you see your boots, the next you don't remember if you had feet at all. You wrap the blanket tighter. Let's be clear. You're no hero, no chieftain, no chosen one. You're just another shadow tucked into a forgotten fold of history. One that won't make the songs, but might haunt the echoes between them. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, hey, drop a comment with your location and the time you're listening. I always love seeing where in the world you're dreaming from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the sun dares show its face. Not because you want to, but because your body, stiff from straw and cold air, insists on it. There's no rooster crowing, no alarm bell, just that slow stretch of silence that means the world is not quite awake, and neither are you. You sit up, rubbing your face with hands that smell faintly of ash and wool. Your breath fogs in the air. Inside, always a promising start. The embers in the hearth have gone shy overnight, but a few flickers remain, sulking beneath their ash blanket. You coax them back with a stick, and a muttered curse that may also be a prayer. Honestly, same difference around here. Outside, the frost lays a fine lace across the window's edge. It's beautiful in that cruel, indifferent way nature always is. You reach for your boots, which you smartly left by the hearth, and now they're only mostly frozen. Progress. You're hungry, of course. You're always hungry. But first, oats. Grinding oats isn't romantic. There's no magic to it. It's just weight and muscle and dust in your throat. You turn the quern slowly, the rhythm jarring at first, then oddly soothing. Round and round the same circle your thoughts take. Did you fix the chicken pen yesterday? Where did you leave the good knife? Is it Tuesday? The answer to that last one is probably, though you'll still call it wash day instead of Tuesday, because nobody around here cares for calendars. They care about weather, about what can be dried, what must be soaked, what will mold if you so much as look at it wrong. By the time the light outside has gone from charcoal to dull pewter, you've got a small bowl of flour, rough and flecked with husk. Perfect. You mix it with water and a pinch of salt, shape it into a flat cake, and set it on a heated stone beside the fire. While it bakes, you wrap yourself in a heavy wool cloak. It smells like last year's rain and someone else's barn, but it's warm. And warmth, in this century, is a form of wealth. The kind no one can tax. You chew your oatcake slowly, like it might betray you if rushed. It's chewy, bland, comforting. A little like your Uncle Ainsley. May he rest wherever he decided to wander off to that year. With food in your belly and your fingers no longer rigid, you prepare for the next part of the day. Stepping outside. The air slaps your face the moment you crack the door. It's not angry, just Scottish. It smells of mud and lichen and distant fire smoke. The kind that tells you someone, somewhere, is already baking something better than oatcakes. You trudge through the frost, heading for the well. It's not far. About 10 minutes if you don't dawdle, 20 if you do, and 30 if you stop to shout at the crows again. They started it. The path takes you past the sheep pen, where your three charges, Maggie, Tooth, and Not Maggie, blink at you with the dull contempt of creatures who have never had to make oatcakes in their lives. You nod back, respect where it's due. At the well, the rope creaks with that satisfying sound that says, yes, I might snap, but not today. You haul up the bucket, the water icy and clear, with just a hint of moss. Good enough to drink, better than ale, some say. Those people are either lying or monks. On the way back, you stop at the herb garden. Garden is generous. It's a rock with ambition, but time clings to the cracks, and mint has managed to bully a little space of its own. You gather a bit of each, tying them in a knot with twine you keep tucked in your sleeve, useful for herbs, or patching socks, or dramatic gestures. You pause to look out over the glen. Mist drapes the hills like the land is trying to sleep in. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk circles, then dives, probably after a rabbit or a ghost. Hard to tell at this range. The village lies just out of sight, down the slope. You'll go there later, maybe for salt or news, or just to see if anyone else has started talking to their sheep yet. Socialization is important. Back inside the cottage, you pour the water into a clay jug, setting some aside to steep a few herbs. A tea of sorts, calming, bitter, allegedly good for the joints, according to the widow who sells it. Historians still argue whether these concoctions had medicinal effects or just convinced people they felt something. Then again, belief can be powerful. especially when it's all you've got. The fire's strong now. The pig, wherever it's hidden, has gone suspiciously quiet, which probably means it's awake and plotting. You sit by the hearth again, sipping your mint-thyme, bitter, wishful-thinking tea. You run your fingers over the wooden table, tracing the groove someone carved long ago, a circle flanked by two crude stars, protective sigil, idle doodle, or the result of a very boring winter. The floor creaks beneath you, not ominously, just familiarly, like it's agreeing. Yes, it says, this is life, not grand, not easy, but it breathes. It continues. You think about what's next, mending a tear in your cloak, rechecking the roof slates before the next rain, gathering kindling, maybe visiting old Mary to trade for eggs, if she's not in one of her "the moon told me no guest today" moods again. You stand slowly. Bones pop. Your knees have opinions. You hush them with promises of warm socks and maybe half an apple later if you're feeling wild. Outside, the wind shifts, brings a new scent. Not danger, just difference. A reminder that even here, in this frozen nook of time, things change. You pocket your twine, tighten your cloak, and step out into it anyway. Your boots crunch over frost-glazed grass as you head toward the edge of your little plot. The sun still hasn't fully committed to the day. It's lingering behind a curtain of mist like a hungover bard, wondering if it's worth showing up. You sympathize. At your side, the morning basket swings gently. It's not fancy, woven roughly from reed, mended twice with sheep gut, but it holds what you need: an old knife, a cloth wrap, and hope. Mostly hope. Today you're hunting the most elusive quarry in all of medieval Scotland: dry kindling. The wind plays a cold tune on your ears as you move toward the copse of trees by the stream. Thin birch, thick pine, and one stubborn oak that looks like it's plotting revenge against whoever decided autumn was over. Leaves crunch underfoot, releasing the scent of rot and old stories. You squat beside a fallen log, brushing away damp moss to reveal a few hopeful twigs. Not much, but you've learned that survival is just a series of small victories stacked like kindling in your arms. You gather what you can, wrapping them in the cloth like precious relics, because in a way, they are. Back at the cottage, the door greets you with a groan. Inside, the pig has relocated. You find it curled up beside the hearth, snoring like an old sailor who's seen too much. You nod in respect. That kind of snore takes practice. You build your fire slowly, methodically. Birch bark curls like parchment. The flame kisses it with orange lips, and soon your tiny world warms again. Outside, the frost sighs and begins its slow retreat. Next task, wool. You retrieve the basket of tangled fleece from its perch in the loft. It smells like lanolin and memories of rain. Spinning is meditative, like prayer, except with more swearing when the fibers snap. You tease the fleece apart with your fingers, the lanolin leaving your hands soft and greasy. The drop spindle waits patiently beside you, a relic that predates your grandmother's grandmother. You tie the leader, draft the fiber, and spin. The spindle whirls, humming a soft rhythm as the wool twists into yarn. It's a kind of magic, taking chaos and turning it into order, a reminder that even the messiest life can be drawn into something useful, if you're patient. As the thread builds, you hum to yourself, a tune without a name, passed down through mouths older than churches. You don't even remember when you learned it. It's just always been there, like the hills or the hunger. Outside, clouds are thickening. That particular kind of gray that means rain is packing its bags. You've got maybe an hour before it arrives with a full speech and no manners. Time to fetch water, check the animals, and make peace with whatever chore you forgot until it's too late. You wrap the spindle, tuck it safely into the basket, and head outside. The sheep are exactly where you left them, standing in their pasture, looking insulted by your presence. Not Maggie bleats once. Disapprovingly, as usual. You check their hooves for rot, their ears for mites. Maggie tries to bite you, but in a friendly way. You offer her a handful of barley as a bribe, and she relents. It's not love, but it's close enough. Back near the door, you pause. A strange scent on the air. Smoke, but not yours. Someone nearby has started their fire late, or something else is burning. You tilt your head, listening. No shouts, no bells, just wind. Probably fine. Inside again, you strip off your cloak, hang it by the hearth, and reach for the small pot of lard and herbs you made weeks ago. Your hands, raw from wool and wind, welcome the salve like an old friend. Historians still argue whether these herbal blends truly healed or simply soothed, but you know this. When your joints ache and your skin cracks, you'll believe in anything that helps. You settle into your stool by the window, rubbing the balm into your fingers, watching as the first drops of rain tap against the thatch. Gentle at first, like a warning, then more insistent. This is your life. Oats, wool, weather, repeat. But there's a strange comfort in the routine, a kind of strength in knowing what tomorrow will taste like, mostly because you made it today. Later, as the rain thickens into a proper storm, you boil a bit of barley, toss in some wild garlic, and a scrap of smoked fish if you're feeling generous with yourself. You eat slowly, legs stretched out, pig warming your ankles. It's not a feast, but it's warm. And in this century, warm is sacred. You think for a moment about the great feasts sung about in taverns, roasted boar, honeyed wine, gold plates. You smirk. Historians now agree most of that was fantasy anyway, medieval PR at its finest. The real diet was grain, and more grain, with a side of onion if you were fancy. The fire crackles, the storm hurls itself at the roof, and still, your little world holds. You press a thumb into a crack in the wall, feeling the stone shift just slightly, like it remembers being placed here by hands now dust. The thought humbles you. You are not permanent. But neither was the storm that ruined the last thatch, or the sickness that stole your uncle, or the snow that came early and refused to leave. You exhale. There is weight in this life, yes, but also there is peace. Rain lets up by morning, but it doesn't go quietly. It grumbles all night, drumming on the thatch like a drunk bard with a borrowed bodhran. You wake groggy, hair sticking out at angles, and a vague memory of dreaming about spooning the pig for warmth. Judging by the fresh snoring under the table, it wasn't mutual. The air smells of damp wool and something sharp. Yarrow, maybe. You stretch, feeling the ache of yesterday's chores in your shoulders and your knees, and possibly your soul. The fire's nothing but sleepy ash. You revive it again with the practiced grumble of someone who knows that warmth is always earned. Breakfast is simple, oatcakes again. This time with a sliver of cheese you've been hiding behind a loose floorboard. You eat it slowly, reverently, like it's contraband, which, in fairness, it kind of is. Cheese is precious. And moldy cheese is only cheese if you're optimistic. After breakfast, you lace your boots, toss on your cloak, and set off down the slope. today's a village day. The path winds between tufts of heather and low stone fences that mostly function as sheep suggestions. The glen stretches around you, quiet, vast, and brimming with damp secrets. You pass a rock shaped suspiciously like a face, its mouth open in a permanent "why me?" a mood. Halfway down, the mist lifts, revealing the rooftops of the village. Just a scatter of thatch and smoke. Nothing grand, but it's alive. You arrive at the outskirts, where a group of hens patrol like feathery guards. One of them, a splotchy menace named Agnes, pecks at your boot just to establish dominance. You nod solemnly. Respect. The market square is just a flattened patch of mud between buildings, but it's where the world happens. Baskets of eggs, wheels of cheese, bundles of herbs, and the occasional barrel of something that might be ale or might be swamp tears. Depends on who's selling. You nod greetings. Familiar faces. Old Mary with her cloud of gray hair and 6 layers of shawls. Fergus still trying to grow a beard that doesn't look like a startled spider. Even wee Isabel, running between stalls with her arms full of cabbages and gossip. You trade a spool of your spun yarn for salt and a tiny pot of honey. A luxury, yes, but also, life is short, and oatcakes deserve mercy. Then a familiar sound. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer. You drift toward it, lured by heat and rhythm. The forge blazes, and Rory the smith wipes his forehead with a sooty forearm. He greets you with a grunt that, in this region, is basically a love letter. You ask about your broken knife. He scowls, vanishes into the back, and returns with it gleaming and sharp. You thank him with a small pouch of herbs. Not legal tender, but appreciated, especially for aching joints and unspoken sorrows. You pass the chapel on the way back. Small, stone, and leaning slightly, as if God put it there and forgot to straighten it. Inside, candles flicker beside a worn altar. You slip in, light one. Not for anything in particular, just in case. Outside again, the wind picks up. You wrap your cloak tighter and start up the slope toward home. The village fades behind you like a fading thought. The wind here carries stories, actual ones. People say it whispers names, old ones in the middle of the night. Some say it can untangle secrets if you listen long enough. You pass the old stone circle on the ridge. Not much left now, just a few standing stones and one that keeled over centuries ago, like it gave up mid-sentence. You pause, touch the lichen-covered surface. Historians still argue whether these stone rings were burial sites, celestial maps, or just very determined garden fences. But standing there, you don't really care. They're old, older than the church, older than memory, and they're still here. That's enough. You reach your cottage just as the clouds shift again, threatening another bout of Scottish charm, aka rain. You duck inside, hang your cloak, and set your goods on the table like a victorious squirrel. The honey glows in its jar. You open it, dip your finger, taste. Sweet, sharp, earthy, like sunlight, bottled with a little bit of bee sass. You laugh, alone, but not lonely. Later, as you sit by the hearth, spinning again, you hear a sound, soft, just outside. Not the wind, not the pig. A voice. You stand quietly and ease open the door. No one, but the scent of heather is stronger now, and in the distance, you think, maybe, you hear a song, low, wordless, old. You shut the door, heart oddly full. There are stories in this land that never asked to be understood, only heard. The sky is ash gray again, which, around here, is basically a promise. Rain or cold, or both. if the weather's feeling ambitious, but your stomach growls, and that's the kind of motivation you can't ignore. You grab your gathering basket and cloak, humming that same old tune under your breath, the one no one remembers teaching you. Your boots squelch into the mud as you head toward the stream. Today's mission? Fish, maybe. Or at least watercress and whatever else you can convince yourself counts as edible. Down by the water, mist coils like a shy cat. The stream babbles nonsense to itself, carrying twigs, leaves, and the occasional fish foolish enough to swim near your rock trap. You crouch beside the bank, roll up your sleeves, and plunge your hands into the biting cold. Fishing is slow work. You wait, patient as stone, until, there, a flash of silver. You scoop fast, missing the first one but catching the second. Small, slippery, stubborn. You hold it up triumphantly, like a medieval trophy. Not exactly feast material, but it's dinner. With your prize secure, you forage a bit, pluck wild garlic, a few sorry mushrooms that might not be cursed, and a clutch of sorrel leaves. Enough to make a stew that won't make you weep. You pause on the walk home at the smokehouse, a little lean-to, dark, and always a bit too warm. Inside, fish and meat hang from hooks, swinging gently like slow, oily wind chimes. The smoke curls around them, thick and fragrant. You hang your catch on the lowest rack. Say a quick prayer to whichever saint watches over underwhelming dinners, and close the flap. The smell of smoke clings to you, always does. It weaves into your hair, your sleeves, your skin. You once read, or maybe overheard, that medieval people smelled like salt, wool, and campfires. That's not wrong, but they also smelled like effort, and you do too. Back home, you build a small fire, balancing damp wood and dry twigs like a gambler. The flame catches, barely. You blow gently, coaxing it to life. The stew pot goes on next. Garlic, sorrel, mushrooms, and a handful of barley. You hum while you stir. Not because you're happy, just because silence, too long, starts to echo. By late afternoon, the cottage smells decent, earthy, better than usual. The pig snuffles approvingly. You toss it a peel or two as tribute. You sit at your tiny table, spoon in hand, and eat slow. Each bite is hot, rough, and unexpectedly rich. You sip broth like it's wine. The fish is tender, probably a fluke. You smile into your bowl. The candle flickers on the shelf behind you. One of the handmade ones, thick and lumpy, poured into an old horn cup. You watch its flame dance and let your thoughts wander. You remember the last proper feast in the village, the midsummer one. Bonfire, music, shouting, bread so soft it nearly wept, and a pie that made 3 people propose to the same cook. You danced barefoot until your heels ached, and then you dance more because someone sang that one tune that always makes your chest feel like thunder. You remember the cider too. Sharp, sweet, regretful. You close your eyes. That memory's a warmth you carry like a secret in your coat lining. Outside, the wind picks up, but this time it's not just noise. It's got rhythm. It slaps the shutter twice like a knock. You frown. Step to the window. Open it a crack. Nothing. Just bracken and heather shifting like they've got something to say. You turn back toward the hearth and freeze. The door. It's open a hand's width. You didn't leave it that way. Your breath catches. For a second, everything in the room stills. Even the pig. You walk to the door slowly. Peer out. Still nothing. But the air smells different now. Smoke and salt. Like sea wind. But you're miles from the coast. You step outside, just one pace. At your feet, a single sprig of heather lies on the threshold. Fresh, purple still bright. You kneel, pick it up. No note, no mark. just the flour. Back inside, you close the door firmly. Bar it, just in case. You place the heather by the hearth, beside the drying herbs. A gift, a warning, a reminder. Historians still argue whether heather in old Highland lore was purely medicinal or if it carried deeper meanings. Luck, protection, love, or grief. You don't know which this is, but you leave it where it lies. Dinner's half eaten now, but you're not hungry. Not anymore. You tend the fire. You listen for more knocks. But the wind has gone quiet, just for now. Night swells fast in the highlands. One moment, you're watching the last edge of the sun shrug behind a hill, and the next, the world folds in around you like a damp woolen cloak, the kind with holes in the elbows, the kind that doesn't ask permission before it settles on your shoulders. You light your candle, one of the stubs, and set it on the windowsill. Not for reading, just to remind the dark you're still here. The pig shifts in its sleep, kicking a clay bowl with a snort so dramatic you consider applauding. You drape another layer of wool over your shoulders and sit at the table, your back to the wall, the way you always do when the wind starts getting chatty. Tonight feels louder, not in volume, but in meaning. The kind of quiet that buzzes in your teeth. You open your little pouch of flint and steel, not to spark anything, just for the comfort of doing something with your hands. You strike once, twice. The flash is tiny but sharp, a reminder of power, even if you don't use it. You glance at the hearth. The heather sprig is still there, curled slightly now from the heat, still vibrant, still unanswered. You exhale slow and steady, then reach for the tin box beneath the table. You open it like it's a wound. Inside are scraps, a button, a carved bead, a scrap of leather with a worn edge, and a folded square of parchment that you haven't dared to read in months. You unfold it now. The writing is smudged. The ink bled from rain or tears, or just time being cruel. Wait for me where the water meets the standing stones. I'll bring the silver coin. That's it. You remember the coin, and the water, and how no one ever came. You put the parchment back, fold it like a wish, and return the box to its hiding place. Not because you're ready to forget, but because the forgetting always happens on its own anyway. You reach for the flask of cider you bartered for last fall, just a sip. It burns kindly, like an old friend telling you a hard truth with a gentle hand. Then, footsteps. Not in the yard. Above you. You freeze. There's nothing above you, just rafters, just thatch. The pig lifts its head, ears twitching, not snorting this time, listening. You set the flask down, stand. The candle sputters, and then a laugh, high, thin, like someone remembering a joke they heard in another lifetime. You grab the poker from the hearth, not for defense, for courage, the kind you can hold. You climb the ladder to the loft. Each rung groans like a secret. You pause at the top, heart louder than your boots. But it's empty. Nothing but wool. Rope. A coil of herbs you hung to dry last week. The laugh doesn't come again. You descend. A little too fast. You don't even notice your hand trembling until the poker clangs against the stone. The pig is silent, watching. You sit back at the table. The candle's flame has gone steady again. Like nothing happened. You laugh, once, under your breath. It sounds a bit too much like the one you heard above. You distract yourself the old way. With stories. You pull out the small carved box beneath the bench. Open it. Inside are 7 tokens, each one a key to a tale. Tonight, you choose the wooden tooth. You turn it in your palm, feel the smooth grain, the worn edges. You begin. There once was a man with 2 teeth, one for eating and one for biting lies. You spin the story aloud. Not loud, just enough for the fire to hear. You make yourself smile at the absurdity. You give the tooth a name. You give the man a dog. You give the dog a dream. And somehow you feel warmer. This is what people did before books, before time. They told stories to keep the dark from getting ideas. Historians still argue whether these oral traditions preserved fact or fantasy. But in nights like this, fact is overrated. You set the tooth back in the box, blow out the candle, let your eyes adjust to the dark. You whisper good night to the pig, to the heather, to the ghost above the rafters who may or may not be laughing still. And then you sleep. Sort of. Morning arrives sideways, bleary, sullen, and damp with regret. The kind of dawn that forgets to bring light. You wake to the scent of cold ashes and the sensation of your left foot tangled in pig. A gentle snort confirms your suspicions. You sit up slowly. Everything aches in that deeply democratic way where no part of you feels left out. Your back, your shoulders, even your eyebrows, somehow, all staging a protest. The fire's dead. Of course, you shuffle toward it, clutching your cloak tight like it owes you money, and begin the slow resurrection. Ash first, then bark, then splinters. You blow carefully, mouth shaping a wind softer than any outside. The flame returns, grudging but faithful. Tea first, or what passes for tea, boiled water with mint and a slice of dried apple. Sweet enough to pretend you're civilized. You drink with both hands wrapped around the cup, letting the warmth seep into your bones like a bribe. Then you notice the door. It's ajar. Just slightly. And you know, without checking, you latched it last night. You step forward, slow. The room holds its breath. Outside, nothing. No footprints in the mud, no disturbed herbs. But near the threshold, a stone. Flat, black, smooth. Too smooth for this part of the Highlands. You bend, pick it up. It's warm. And that's when you hear it. A single knock. Not at the door. Not on the wall. From the inside. Your breath stills. You turn, slow as church bells on a funeral day, and scan the room. Nothing. Then another knock. Lower. You crouch. Under the floorboards, you press your ear to the stone floor. It hums. It's not just sound, it's memory. And you remember the story. The one you were told as a child. The one everyone pretended was for fun. If you hear the knock from under the ground, don't answer, don't speak, don't even breathe. You close your eyes, hold your breath. The knock doesn't come again, but something has shifted. In the walls, in the bones of the house, in the way the pig refuses to move from its corner now. You tuck the smooth black stone into your pocket, not because you want to keep it, but because you can't leave it behind. Later, you leave the cottage, not for chores, not for errands, just to move. You follow the path uphill past the stone circle, higher than you've been in weeks. The air grows sharper and your breath paints clouds in front of your face. You crest the ridge and see the valley stretch below, cloaked in fog. Then you see it, a figure. Small, still, standing near the standing stones. Too far to see clearly, but it's there. You blink. It's gone. You wait. Nothing moves. You turn to head back, boots crunching frost, when something on the ground catches your eye. Another stone. Same shape, same warmth. This one carved. A spiral, like smoke, like time. Historians still argue whether spiral carvings on Highland stones represented the sun, eternity, or the passage between worlds. None of those possibilities makes you feel better right now. You pocket it anyway, because sometimes you carry the heavy things. Back at home, you close the door firmly, lock it, bar it, then stare at it like it might explain itself. You make soup, because soup is grounding, even if it's just water, garlic, and barley. You stir with a steady hand. The stones clink in your pocket like coins you can't spend. When the sky darkens, you place the two stones side by side on the mantel. One smooth, one carved. The hearth crackles, the pig snores, but your eyes stay open long after the dark settles. Just listening. You don't sleep that night, not properly. You drift, maybe, like a boat without a sail, but never far enough to forget the stones. They sit on the mantel like quiet guests, waiting for you to acknowledge them. You don't, but you know they know you're watching. At some point, maybe near dawn, you slip into a half-dream. You're back in the stone circle. But it's full. Every fallen stone stands tall again. The sky is the wrong color, blue, but deeper, bruised. And the air hums with music made from wind and voices that don't use words. You're not alone. There are figures, shadowy, indistinct, not men, not ghosts, just old. One of them offers you a cup. You reach for it and wake up to the pig chewing your boot. You mutter something unholy and shove it gently away. The boot is damp now. Excellent. You sigh, stretch, and throw back the cover. The day has that strange yellow light, the kind that means either a storm is coming or the sky's about to play a trick. You squint at the hills just in case. You eat quickly. More oatcakes now with a side of judgment. Then cloak on, you step out into the morning. You don't plan to visit the stone circle again, but your feet decide otherwise. The path rises quickly, cutting through bracken and frost-bitten grass. The wind tugs at your sleeves like a child with questions. When you reach the stones, they're just as broken and quiet as before. But something's different. Someone's been here. You spot it right away, a tiny pile of bones neatly stacked at the center of the ring. Bird bones, wrapped in thread. A charm, or a message. You crouch beside it, not touching, just observing. The spiral is here too, carved into the dirt. Not with a knife, with a finger. The soil still holds the shape, still damp from pressure. You look around, nothing moves. But the wind stops, like it's listening. You speak, just one word, a name, not yours, not anyone you know, but it feels right. The wind exhales again, then, faintly, a bell. Not church, not metal, something older. It's coming from the lock. You turn. The path down is barely visible, twisting through heather and scree. You haven't taken it in months, maybe years, but today, you do. The lock waits in a shallow cradle of hills, still, black, reflective like obsidian. The air smells of peat and iron. At the edge, someone's built a cairn, 5 stones stacked with impossible balance. You add one, because it feels wrong not to. You kneel by the water, watch your face ripple and warp. Then, movement, a flicker beneath the surface. You lean closer. It's not a fish. It's your own reflection, but older, wearing a spiral carved into the forehead. You stumble back, fall into the moss. The air rushes from your lungs. When you look again, the lock is still. You sit there for a long time, letting your pulse calm, letting the air settle around your thoughts. Then you rise. And there it is, another stone, at the foot of the cairn. This one red, warm again, with a jagged crack down the center. You don't know why, but it feels like part of a set. Back home, you place it with the others. 3 stones, smooth, spiral, split, each one humming softly against the wood. You light the fire. You hum your nameless song. You drink your herbal tea. You check the latch on the door twice. But you know something has shifted again. Not just the stones. You. Rain returns with drama. Not polite drizzle. Not the soft mist that curls around your ankles like a curious cat. No, this is sky-ripping, thatch-soaking, mud-summoning rain. The kind that doesn't ask for permission before invading your walls and plans. It falls in sheets, then buckets, then what feels like a grudge. You stay inside. You try to stay busy. Spinning yarn, mending a cloak, sharpening your knife with a focus that borders on hostile. The stones sit on the mantel, silently judging, or maybe humming. You still haven't figured out if it's in your head or in the air. You eat a bowl of lentils, gray, lumpy, perfectly appropriate for a day like this. And just when you start thinking it might be another quiet afternoon, you hear it. Hooves. Not the distant kind, not the thunder from the valley kind. These are close, deliberate, clapping against stone and mud just beyond your door. You move to the window. A horse stands in the yard, big, mud-speckled, and atop it, swaying slightly, is a man in heavy furs and a cloak so dark it might be absorbing the color from the landscape. You know that cloak. The laird. Not your laird. Not really, but technically, yes. He owns these lands, or claims to, or was gifted them by someone long dead who definitely didn't ask your opinion. He hasn't visited in years. You open the door slowly. The laird dismounts without a word, ties his horse to your fence. Then, with the ease of someone who assumes they belong, he steps inside. He doesn't remove his cloak. Water drips onto your floor. The pig, sensing something off, retreats to the darkest corner. You nod once. He nods once. This is the entire greeting. He accepts your offer of tea with a grunt, and soon you're both sitting at your small table, steam rising between you. He doesn't touch the tea. You wait. He finally speaks. Heard anything strange? You blink. Every day. You say, honest. He grunts again, almost a laugh, then pulls something from his satchel. A stone, like yours, except this one is white, marbled with a symbol you don't recognize. A spiral, but twisted, inverted, like it's been folded back on itself. He places it on the table between you. It hums louder than yours. They're showing up across the glen, he says, voice low. Always in threes. Always warm. You say nothing. He glances at your mantle, sees your collection. He doesn't ask how you got them. He just nods, as if that answers something for him. Then he leans in, low, almost a whisper. They say the old gods are counting, and they never count past 5. You swallow. Who says that, you ask? But he's already rising. He drains his tea in one bitter swallow, leaves the white stone on your table, and steps back into the rain like he was never there. You watch him ride away until the storm swallows him whole. The white stone thrums beneath your fingers, cold, and then warm. You place it with the others. 4 now, and only 1 left. Historians still argue whether lairds in medieval Scotland held any real power over rural crofters or merely played ceremonial roles, like wedding cake toppers with better swords. But this laird wasn't here for power. He was here for warning. You lock the door twice. The next morning isn't really a morning at all, just a dim shrug from the sky and a reluctant hint of gray where blue should be. You open your eyes to a cottage that smells of wet stone, burnt ash, and the faint tang of something floral. Not heather, something sweeter, something unfamiliar. The pig is already awake, its snout buried in straw, snuffling with more intent than usual. You sit up slowly, rubbing the sleep from your neck, and that's when you see it. The fifth stone. It's already on the mantle. You didn't place it there. You didn't hear the door. You know it wasn't there last night. This one is unlike the others. It's translucent, shot through with threads of gold. Lighter than it should be, almost glowing from within. It hums, yes, but softer, like it's whispering instead of singing. You step closer. There's something etched into it. Not a spiral, a line. Straight, sharp, ending abruptly. A path, maybe, or a severed tether. You touch it, and a jolt shudders up your fingers. Your vision goes white, and then you're not in your cottage anymore. You're standing in the stone circle, except it's whole, towering, alive with movement. Figures dance between the stones, hooded, ageless, genderless. The air smells of honey and thunder. You hear drums made from things that shouldn't drum. One figure turns to you. Their face is yours, but older, wiser, sadder. They lift a hand, palm out. You reach to meet it and wake up, gasping, back in your cottage, on your knees. The pig watches you with wide, unnervingly human eyes. You stand slowly. Your hands are shaking. You wrap them in cloth, not for warmth, but for containment. You boil water, add mint, honey. Nothing changes, but routine helps. You stare at the 5 stones now lined up on your mantle, and you realize something. They're not humming anymore. They're pulsing, in rhythm, with your heartbeat. You step outside for air. Cold bites your cheeks. The glen is silent in that uneasy way, like a room that's just been screamed in. You walk, not toward the village, not toward the stream, toward the circle, because you have to. Your feet know the way before your thoughts do. When you arrive, it's waiting. The 5th stone, another version of it, rests in the exact center of the ring. This one is massive, waist high, embedded into the earth, identical to the glowing one in your pocket, only older, dimmer, tired. You kneel beside it, press your palm to its surface. Cold, dead. You look around, then up, and then, somehow, beneath. The earth trembles faintly, and you hear it again. The knock, from below. Not soft this time, not polite. It's summoning. You speak aloud. What do you want? The air shifts, and for the first time in days, you feel watched, not by something with eyes, but something with memory. You back away, slowly. You don't run, because that feels like permission. Instead, you turn your back on the circle. You walk home, carefully, each step deliberate. You don't look behind you, not even when you hear footsteps. Once inside, you don't remove your cloak. You just stand there, listening. The 5 stones are no longer glowing, but the space between them is. A halo of golden light, floating, spinning. You step closer. The light contracts, then expands, and in the center, an image, your cottage, burning, empty. You blink. The image vanishes. You stagger back, chest tight, pulse erratic. The stones go still. Historians still argue whether ancient Highlanders practiced a form of proto-divination using marked stones, but none of their records mention stones showing futures. You sit, you breathe, and for the first time in a long time, you're not sure you want to know what happens next. You don't leave the cottage the next day, or the one after that. The air outside feels wrong. Not just cold, not just damp, but watchful, like the hills themselves are holding their breath. Inside, you keep the fire going until the walls sweat and your cheeks flush red. You sleep with your cloak on. You eat only when you remember. You keep the stones covered with an old cloth, but it does nothing. Their hum has returned, and now it's constant, faint, but always there, like the buzz of a thought you can't shake. The fifth one, the glowing one, sometimes flickers. You think of it as blinking, and you don't like the idea that it sees. You spend the third day trying to distract yourself. You scrub the floor, even though it doesn't need it. You sort your herbs. You rebind a book spine that's been cracked since autumn. Anything to avoid looking at the mantle. Anything to avoid remembering the fire, the vision. But you do remember, every time you close your eyes. The stones showing you your home in flames, not chaotic, not war-torn, just abandoned and burning, like something completed its task and moved on. You hear footsteps again. This time, you don't check. You light another candle instead. The pig refuses to move near the hearth now. It's taken up permanent residence beneath the table. Occasionally, it snorts in its sleep like it's having nightmares. You understand. That night, you write a letter. You don't know who it's for. You just write. If you find this place, I'm probably gone. I don't know where or why. Only that it started with the stones. Only that I think they were always here, waiting. Not evil, not good, just old and hungry. You stop. You fold it. You place it under a loose stone near the hearth. Then you finally lift the cloth. All 5 stones glow now. The space between them pulses like a living thing. You reach toward it. You don't mean to touch it, but you do. And the world disappears. No pain, no sound, just absence. And then you're elsewhere, a place not made of matter, but memory. You see your cottage years ago, before the roof sagged, before the pig, before you. A woman stands where you now sleep. She's humming. In her hands, a stone, the spiral one. She places it on the mantle, and as she turns, you see her face. It's yours. Almost. You reach out. Your hand passes through. You're watching a loop, a memory etched into the world itself. Then, a flicker. A fire. You see it again. The burning. Only this time, something moves through the flames. Something tall, antlered, smiling without lips. You recoil and land back in your body, face down on the stone floor. The pig squeals once. You gasp. The cottage is intact. The fire is still burning. The stones are dark, silent. But on the table now, a 6th stone, unfamiliar, shaped like an eye, etched with a name. Your name. Historians still argue whether pre-Christian Highland peoples worshipped a pantheon of spirits or honored singular shape-shifting entities connected to natural forces. But the antlers, they keep showing up. You sit back against the wall. Your hands tremble. You don't know the rules anymore, but you do know this. Something has chosen you, and it has a name for you. Even if you don't remember it yet. You don't remember falling asleep, but you wake with your cheek pressed to cold stone and a thin line of drool betraying whatever dreams dragged you under. The fire's burned low. The pig is gone from beneath the table. That's the first thing that feels wrong. The second is the 6th stone. It's no longer on the table. It's on your pillow, facing you. The eye symbol gleams faintly in the dim light, and for a moment, you swear, it blinks. You throw the blanket over it like it's a spider and back away, nearly tripping over the stool. You need air. You grab your cloak and stumble out into the morning. The sky is bruised. Not quite dawn, Not quite night. Just that purgatory shade of violet that makes you question time and taste. You follow the path that winds behind the cottage. Your feet crunch frost. You breathe in the scent of moss, wet bark, and the sharp metal tang of something too quiet. You mean to walk to the stream. You do, but somehow you end up in the turnip patch, the one you never quite finished harvesting last fall. The soil is soft today, oddly so. You kneel, dig with bare hands until your nails ache, and that's when you find it. Not a turnip, a ring. Gold, ancient, crushed slightly on one side, but still glinting like it remembers being precious. You brush off the dirt. There's an inscription inside, worn but there. 3 words, return what's owed. Your mouth dries. You don't recognize the ring, but your fingers do. They know exactly which finger it fits. You slide it on. It clicks into place like a key finding its lock. And suddenly, a memory, not yours, but you in it, flashes behind your eyes. A hill, a man, a promise spoken beneath a tree, now long dead. The man presses this ring into your hand and says, "It will always find its way back to you." You gasp. The air around you shifts. You pocket the ring and stand quickly. The ground beneath the turnip patch is humming now. You back away, walk fast, almost run. Back inside, you check the blanket. The eye stone is gone. In its place, a feather. Crow, black, slick with something red that's not quite blood. You toss it into the fire without thinking. The flames recoil, then surge. Your pot cracks in half from the heat. The walls groan, and then silence. You sit. You drink water. You pretend this is all perfectly normal. That evening, you check your old journal, the one you stopped writing in last spring. You flip to the last page and find handwriting that isn't yours. A list: 1, spiral 2, split 3, path 4, mirror 5, gate 6th, name 7th, debt. That last one is underlined twice. You don't remember writing this, but the ink is fresh. You stare at the word debt and feel it settle in your stomach like a swallowed coin. Historians still argue whether Highlanders buried valuables as offerings or as protections, ways to seal a pact with spirits older than the church. You wonder if that ring was buried to protect you, or to protect others from you. The pig returns just before midnight, covered in mud, eyes wide, in its mouth, another feather. You don't burn this one. You place it on the mantle, right next to the stones, all 6 of them, silent now, watching, waiting. The wind arrives before the storm. It always does, slipping through the heather like a rumor, whispering under the eaves, slamming the shutters just hard enough to remind you they were never built to keep anything out, only to give the illusion of choice. You don't sleep. You sit by the fire, legs curled beneath you, wrapped in wool and caution. The ring still hugs your finger, tighter now, as though it's shrinking or growing more possessive. The feather lies where you left it, but the stones, 6 now, have changed again. They don't glow. They don't hum. They vibrate, not with sound, but with potential, with waiting. You don't touch them. You barely breathe. Outside, the first thunder cracks the sky in half. And, you know, without needing proof, that this is the night. You don't even have time to reach for your cloak before the knock comes. Not on the door. On the roof. You freeze. The pig bolts beneath the table. The knock comes again. Then again. 3 times. You stand. Slowly. Carefully. Like you're balancing a full cup of something sacred and scalding. You step outside. The storm greets you like an old lover, familiar, furious, and absolutely soaking. You tilt your face to the sky, and there it is. A figure, standing on your roof, backlit by lightning, antlers branching from its skull like lightning frozen mid-strike. Its eyes glow white, no pupils, no mercy. It crouches and leaps. You don't move. It lands in front of you with no sound at all. You blink rain from your lashes. It doesn't. Then, in a voice like wind-scraping bone, it says, "You owe." You swallow. What? It tilts its head, antlers scraping the air. You return the ring. You remember the promise. Now comes the price. You glance at your hand. The ring is gone. In its place, blood, yours. You don't remember being cut. The creature holds out a hand. Long fingers, too many joints. It doesn't repeat itself. You take the hand, not because you understand, because not taking it feels worse. The moment your fingers meet, the world cracks. You're back, but not here. You're in the hills. No storm, no cottage, just stars. Too many, too close. And around you, the circle of stones. Whole, alive, each glowing a different color. And at their center, a pit, a chasm that bleeds light upward. You sealed it once, the voice says beside you, but it won't stay closed unless you remember why. You stare into the light and see faces. Yours. Again and again. In different centuries, different clothes. Always watching, always waiting. You whisper, "I'm the lock." The voice says nothing. You step forward, not into the pit, but around it. You walk the circle once, twice, a third time. The stars shift, the pit closes. With a sigh, like a god giving up, you wake back in your cottage. No storm, no blood, no ring. The mantle is empty. The feather is ash. The pig sleeps like nothing happened. You check your hand. A scar now. A spiral. Historians still argue whether antlered figures in Celtic mythology were gods, tricksters, or memory keepers, but they all agree on one thing. They never visit by accident. You lie down, pull the blanket up to your chin, and for the first time in weeks, you sleep deeply. And the stones do not return. Not yet. When you wake, it's quiet, not silent, not eerie, just quiet, like the land itself is exhaling after holding tension in its shoulders for far too long. The hearth has gone cold, but the air in the cottage is strangely warm, like someone just left, like they'd stirred the dust a bit, straightened a chair, and slipped out without a sound. The pig is upright, alert, but calm. It blinks at you once, then returns to chewing whatever it's unearthed from beneath the bench. You pat its head. Outside, the world is soft. The frost has lifted. The sky is the kind of blue that poets lie about, clear, light, and full of that rare promise. Not everything ends in fire. You step out expecting damage, ash, signs that something really happened, but the cottage is intact, the soil untouched, even the roof, where something uninvited landed last night, looks perfectly fine. No tracks, no blood, no stones, just morning and peace. Almost. You walk to the stone circle, out of habit now, or maybe duty. The heather parts gently as you move, like it's learned not to resist you anymore. The stones are there, still broken, still leaning, but inert. You reach out to touch one, the one that used to whisper. It's just stone now, cold, dumb, honest. You sit in the center of the ring, wait for a hum, a pulse, a dream. Nothing comes. And somehow, that is what breaks you. You don't cry. Not quite. But your breath catches in your throat like it's caught between languages. You whisper, "Was that it?" No one answers. You return to the cottage and start cleaning, not out of necessity, but because it feels like something you can do. You sweep out corners that haven't seen light in months. You scrub the floor until it shines like polished bone. You wash the windows. You mend the cushion where the pig chewed a corner last winter. You even hang fresh herbs from the beams, mint, thyme, a little heather for protection. That evening, you make soup. A real one this time. Onion, turnip, barley, a scrap of smoked fish. It tastes like memory, the kind that doesn't ache anymore. You sit by the hearth, fire lit, cloak folded neatly beside you. The stones are gone. The ring is gone. But the scar remains. A small spiral, faint, almost charming now. You trace it sometimes without realizing. A reminder or a receipt. Historians still argue whether ritual scars in early Highland culture were marks of punishment or privilege. You think maybe they were both. Maybe that's the point. Later you find the box again, the one with the bead, the letter, the carved tooth. You add a feather and close the lid. There are no more knocks, no dreams, just the creak of beams, the hum of wind, the soft snore of a content pig. And for now, that's enough. You begin marking time again, though not by calendar. You do it by smell when the wind shifts from peat to pollen, by sound when the owls return to the ridge, by taste when the first greens push through the thawed soil and you finally make something crunchy again. The days blur but gently. You develop a new routine. Not to forget, to honor. Each morning, you open the door and greet the air. Whether it bites or embraces, you thank the sky. You nod to the stone circle, even if it stays quiet. You check the spot where the sixth stone appeared. Nothing yet. You leave a cup of tea out once a week. You never find it full the next day. But it's never exactly empty either. The pig stays close now, more companion than livestock. It follows you from room to room, like it suspects you might vanish again. You tell it jokes. Sometimes they're funny. You suspect the pig is just polite. You begin carving again. Not symbols, shapes, antlers, spirals, eyes, hands. You don't know what you'll do with them yet. But it feels like something is asking to be remembered. You write too, not in the old journal, in a new one. One where you choose the stories. The first line, I used to think I was alone out here. And already that doesn't feel true anymore. Spring comes slowly, the way it always does here. Like a traveler who doesn't want to impose. The ice pulls back from the lock, the soil loosens. The birds return, and one morning you wake to find something nestled beside your door. A stone, round, warm, completely blank. You smile. You don't pick it up. You just sit beside it, sip your tea, and wait. Because now you know. Some stories don't end. They just change shape. Historians still argue whether early Highland dwellers believed in reincarnation or if they simply understood life as a circle. But either way, you suspect they knew this truth. You don't escape the old paths. You become one. And somewhere out there, across time or hill or dream, someone else will one day find your footprints and follow. The fire has faded to embers. No blaze, no heat wave, just a soft red glow, like a breath still held beneath ash. You watch as a tiny coal pops and sighs, more tired than fierce. The pig stirs once in its sleep. One ear flops, one leg twitches. You hope it's dreaming of warm mud and leftover oatcakes. Not storms, not circles. The room has stilled. No wind scratches the shutters now. No tapping, no questions. Just that quiet hum of things that have finally stopped needing to be explained. You wrap the blanket tighter, not because you're cold, but because it feels like the right punctuation. The weight of it across your shoulders is familiar now. Protective. The scent of wood smoke lingers in the folds. wrapped around you like an old lullaby. Your hands are empty now. No stones, no letters, no keys or feathers, just warmth and memory and the faint curve of a scar still spiraled into your palm like a soft exhale from something older than language. You sit and you listen to the quiet creak of the wood settling, to the occasional sigh of the wind outside, gentle now, apologetic, and to your own breath, steady and soft, like the pages of a book finally closing. You remember how the circle hummed beneath your feet. You remember the hand that reached for yours, even if you no longer know whose it was. You remember being afraid, and you remember walking forward anyway, even if nothing ever returns, even if the stones stay silent forever. You hold them in you now. Every name, every story, every echo that once passed through this cottage is folded gently behind your ribs. Outside, the trees lean closer, not listening, but resting. A single note breaks the silence. A night bird, brief, pure, then stillness again. The sky deepens, not darker, just quieter. Your eyes close, and your thoughts drift like fog rolling down a familiar hill, not seeking, just arriving. And in that long, slow exhale between heartbeats, you find your rest.